if you want to learn it differently, anything that can be learned can be unlearned and relearned. Mass incarceration and recidivism are not just statistics. They are a reflection of our society's choices. Choices are rooted in systemic racism, inequality, and deeply ingrained prejudices. To understand how we got here, we must start with a spark, a series of events that ignited public awareness and set the stage for a broken system.
It began in the 1970s when President Nixon declared the war on drugs. This war wasn't just about substances, it became a war on marginalized communities. Policies like mandatory minimum sentencing and the Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1986 disproportionately targeted Black and Latino populations. Crack cocaine offenses carried much harsher penalties than powder cocaine, deepening racial disparities. The media played its part too. During the crack epidemic, headlines portrayed drug users as criminals, not people in need of help. These narratives reinforced stereotypes, stoked fear, and normalized punitive policies. The Reagan administration doubled down with tough-on-crime policies. By the 1990s, legislations like the Crime Bill perpetuated a system of mass incarceration, leaving generational scars on communities of color.
Mass incarceration thrives on a dominant narrative, the stock story. It tells us that crime is an individual failing detached from systemic inequities. It suggests that longer sentences and stricter policies keep society safe and rehabilitate offenders. But the reality is different. Underlying causes like systemic racism and economic inequality funnel marginalized groups into the prison system. Privatized prisons profit from higher incarceration rates, creating a perverse incentive to keep people locked up. And the stigma of incarceration ensures that former inmates remain trapped in cycles of poverty and recidivism. Crime isn't a moral failing. It's a symptom of deeper societal problems.
Behind the stock story lies a concealed story, voices that reveal the human cost of mass incarceration. Formerly incarcerated individuals share how the system creates barriers to reintegration. Housing, employment, and mental health support are nearly impossible to access. Marginalized communities point to systematic racism and economic deprivation as root causes. Others tell harrowing stories of survival crime, committing offenses just to secure basic needs like food or shelter, and some battling untreated trauma or mental illness find themselves in prison simply because there's nowhere else to turn. These voices challenge the notion that incarceration is a solution. They remind us that people are not disposable.
Instead of, just mass incarceration, let's try to instill some pride in these people. Let's try to give them what they need, and because the mental health aspect is just it's like an epidemic, because following that a lot of times is substance abuse, and that leads to a number of problems in and of itself. So if we can work on that mental health piece first, and especially with younger people, then maybe they never get to that self-medication, resorting to self-medication, and then that leads, of course, to substance abuse and a whole host of other lifestyle problems, really, social problems.
Amid the despair, resilience thrives. Across the country, groups are fighting back, demanding a more just system. Organizations like Critical Resistance envision a world without prisons, focusing instead on community-based alternatives. The Sentencing Project works tirelessly to expose racial disparities and advocate for policy reform. Grassroots movements build awareness, while restorative justice programs repair harm without relying on incarceration. Legislative victories like the First Step Act show progress, but there's still a long way to go. Movements aim to dismantle the prison industrial complex, replace punishment with prevention, and shift the narrative from retribution to rehabilitation.
Imagine a different story, one where our society addresses the root causes of crime instead of the perpetuating cycles of punishment. What if housing, healthcare, and education were accessible to everyone? What if we invested in mental health care instead of prisons? What if we prioritized restorative justice where communities heal and rebuild instead of breaking apart? Breaking the cycle of incarceration begins with imagining something radically different, a world where dignity and opportunity replace stigma and despair.
The fight against mass incarceration and recidivism is ongoing, and we all have a role to play. Petition for change, raise awareness, support local initiatives. Together, we can rewrite the story and create a system that values human potential over punishment. Because justice isn't just about the law. It's about equity, dignity, and hope for a better future.